Ready.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jordan Levy. I'm Mariano, and I'm the...
There is a resemblance.
Actually, listen, I use that line all the time when I give a speech. If you don't know me, my name is Jordan Levy.
Does it get you cheers or
A lot of laughs, because Jordan and I have been friends for so long. And Jordan knows I use that line all the time. And he was mayor, and then I was mayor, and now I'm the executive director of the Worcester Housing Authority, and I've been executive director for the last 13 and a half years.
And you are here with us. You're with Worcester Magazine today, so appreciate you coming in. And your last day is June 30th.
My last day is June 30th, so another week.
Another week. Are you ready to go?
No.
You're not?
No. Well, no. But it's the right time. When I started, we had so many things that needed to be done. We had 1,100 work orders: fix my sink, fix my screen, that were over 30 days old. We had work orders that were 2 and 3 years old. We now have no work orders over 30 days, and then we moved it to no work orders over 20 days. We now do the average work order in about 2.5 days, 2 days. So dramatically improved. We had crime and gang problems on many of our properties. We've reduced vice crime by 98+% at Great Brook Valley, Curtis, and Lakeside.
And for people that don't know, vice crime is prostitution, things of that nature?
Drugs.
Yep.
Is the biggest. We haven't had a drug raid in one of our properties, one of those 3 major properties in, I think, the last 3 years. We would have them weekly. When I started, we'd go out at night with police. We would go out with 6 or 8 or 10 officers looking for people who didn't belong on the property. And we would run out of police officers. So you could arrest someone, and then they have to go back. An officer has to take them back in the patrol wagon.
Right.
And now you're down to, let's say you were at 8, now you're down to 7, then you're down to 6, and now all of a sudden there's nobody, and there you and a couple of staff people are. It's 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're still walking around the property. And at some point, what happened was we couldn't find anybody to arrest anymore. And it was very exciting. And the article, and I'm very appreciative of, that you all wrote in the Worcester Magazine,
Sure.
is chronicled the change. And the change for us, it has been significant. I didn't take the job to fix the windows and the doors. Anyone can do that. It's not easy, but anyone can do that. I took the job to improve the lives of people like me. I'm a 20-year veteran of living in public housing. So
Grew up in Great Brook Valley.
I grew up in Great Brook Valley, and then in those days, it was a neighborhood that people passed through for the most part. We stayed an awful long time, but most families were there 3 or 4 or 5 years, and they moved out and went on to something else. And over the years, it became something other than that. So we made it safer. We made them cleaner, and in some cases prettier. We actually have a program for some of our properties called Neighborhood Best, and our objective for those properties is to make that property the very best, the most attractive piece of property in the neighborhood, the safest, but also the best looking, so it's an asset to the larger Worcester community. We've had a great deal of success in doing all that. And then, of course, our self-sufficiency programs were next. I started 13 and a half years ago. I didn't have a job. I have a mission. The mission is to improve the lives of people who live there. All good people, people who most people in public office would rather not pay much attention to because they've got other things to do. And these folks don't vote generally in high numbers, and they don't pay attention to government, and they're used to being ignored. I wanted very much to help them, but I also know that to help them, we had to hold them to higher standards as well. I believe in my residents, but the key to it is holding them to high standards as well as holding yourself to those standards. And we did that. I think for the most part, our residents appreciate that.
You've taken some criticism, though.
That's okay. I really don't worry about that. In the end, when I first started in government, I remember the first day in public office, the first official meeting. I got home at midnight or a little after midnight. I went out and ran 10 miles. I was so keyed up, and I was worried about this person and that person, what they think. And I long since gave up worrying about that. What you worry about is do your best and try to help someone along the way. If you can defend to yourself, to your family. I mean, for me, the measure is my family. if I can look at my kids and tell them why I'm doing something, and have them look back at me with admiration, that I've done a good job. And if someone else thinks it's wrong, that's okay. I mean, we've been criticized because we kick bad guys out of public housing.
Yeah, kick them out, put them in other neighborhoods.
Yeah, I plead guilty.
You don't deny when critics come to you and say, "Hey, Ray Mariano, you did this," or "Isn't it true you did this?" Yeah, that's true.
I did. Look, I mean, everything we do is out there for people to see. We cleaned up public housing. We made it safer. Now, remember, public housing isn't a regular neighborhood. Public housing is supported by taxpayers. You do not deserve a taxpayer benefit if you're going to sell drugs. By the way, you don't deserve anything from the taxpayers except their contempt. But you certainly don't deserve a subsidy to live in an apartment below market rate and be able to do this stuff. Now, some people are going to worry about where they go, and that's their job, but that's not my job. My job is to worry about what we spend taxpayers' money on. Now, keep in mind, when I was mayor of Worcester, we went out all over the city on a regular basis at night, looking for people who didn't belong in neighborhoods. You know, I can remember going to Lakeside Apartments, and I can remember having police officers say to me, "Mayor, we don't go back there." And I was going in between some of the buildings. And I said, "Well, why the hell not?" "Well, yeah, it might not be safe." And I said, "Heck, if residents are going to go back there, I'm going to go back there."
Right.
You know, and I remember one time I went around the back, and there were some big guys sitting on the stoop, and they looked up and they kind of had a menacing look, and they said, "Oh, hey, Mayor, come on over, have a hit." And they were drinking Colt 45 on the stoop, you know. I said, "No, thank you," and I sat and chatted with them for a while.
You didn't have a Colt?
No, I didn't. I did not.
Scouts on?
No, Scouts on. I didn't. You know, a few years earlier I might have had it, but not that. But my approach to the job was the same, except when I was mayor, except the community is smaller. It's to give it as much of your attention as possible and to satisfy the people that you serve. I was in church one day. At the end of Mass, two women came over and said, "Oh, Mr. Mayor," I was executive director at the time, but a lot of folks still call me mayor, and said, "Oh, Mr. Mayor, I want to tell you something about Lakeside Apartments." And I thought, "Oh God, here it comes." And my wife is there, and I said, "Well, just a minute." And I put my wife in the pew, the Mass was over, and I said, "I'll be right with you." And I had to go in the sacristy for something, and I came back out, and they said, "Oh, they're still here." My goodness, I kind of hope they left, because I know what they were going to say. They were going to say, "You're not doing your job, and this place is a mess." And they said, "We live on Circuit Ave, which is right behind Lakeside Apartments, and we've lived there all of our lives." Now, these women were probably in their about 60, let's say.
Yeah.
And I thought, "Oh, here it comes." And they said, "It has never been cleaner. It has never been quieter. We've never had fewer problems, and God bless you." And I thought, "Oh my goodness, I should have taken this conversation at the beginning of that. It would have felt even better." That is my job. My job is to make the public housing better for the people who live there, and for the people who live in the surrounding neighborhoods. And I think, to a large extent, even people who criticize some of our approaches, they have to admit that it's safer, it's cleaner, it's more beautified, and our residents are doing better. All of those things are facts. You can't change the facts. You may not like the approach. There's a columnist for the Telegram who criticized me because I go out at night and knock on doors at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night. I don't apologize for that. If you're harboring people who aren't on the lease, who are gangbangers and don't belong in public subsidized housing.
Yeah.
Now, my wife didn't want me to go because she didn't want me to get hurt or get in trouble, but I went because it was my responsibility to clean that community up. So if I knocked on the door at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night, I don't apologize. I did those things. We'd go out at 7 in the morning because the rule is bad guys don't get up till 9 or 10. And we'd go do warrant sweeps with the police, and we'd collect and arrest. The police would arrest people at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning who were living illegally in our apartment with someone else, and they had multiple warrants out. But that's our job. We can't have warrant sweeps anymore.
Now, what about...
because there's nobody to arrest.
Right. There's still crime in the Housing Authority, right? There's still crime in Greenbrook Valley.
There's crime everywhere in the city. But the truth of the matter is, it's a good barometer. We would go and every few months they'd collect warrants for people who were suspected living on the property.
Right.
And the police would go, they'd coordinate it with my public safety staff, and they'd go and make 6, 8, 10 arrests in the morning. You know, when Alex Corrales started his first day on the job years ago at Great Brook Valley, he's going to be the next executive director. He said there were 15 U.S. Marshals delivering drug warrants on the property, Great Brook Valley and Curtis, in the same day. 15. Over time, I can remember saying to my director of public safety, Angel Rosario, you know, we haven't done a warrant sweep in a while. Let's do one. And he said, Ray, the reason we haven't done a warrant sweep in a while is there's nobody with any warrants here. And it put a smile on my face. We've cleaned it up. There are good families who live there. They deserve to live in a good neighborhood.
Now, some people would say, however, you've cleaned it up, but Union Hill, Lower Grafton Hill, they've gotten a little bit worse because some of Ray Mariano's problems have been kicked out.
Well,
and you answered that pretty straightforward too.
That's not my job anymore. I gave a speech at the North Worcester Business Association a few years ago, and they said the exact same thing. And I said, look, I've been waiting a long time to say this to somebody, but that's no longer my job. You know, you got another mayor. Have him or her go do that. I mean, when I was mayor, we'd go out at night and we'd deal with those problems. Worcester isn't as safe as it used to be. It should be the primary focus of our city government, frankly. And they need to pay more attention to it and not just talk about it. But that's for somebody else to do. That's not for me to do.
You are retiring. You're going to be 66 this year.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel?
I feel great. Not because I'm retiring. I just feel pretty good. I'm very lucky. I've got a wonderful wife who takes excellent care of me, and I've got great kids, and I try really hard to work out and keep myself physically in shape. The job is exhausting. It is because it's not a job. I took it as a mission. When I was mayor, it was my mission to make Worcester better. When I became executive director of the Housing Authority, it was my mission to improve the lives. And when you have a mission, unlike a job, it's 24 hours a day. It's getting up at 2 in the morning, sending emails to my staff, and they would all laugh when you go into work and they'd say, what time did you get your email? I got mine at 2. What time did you get yours? Oh, I got mine at 3. You know, and they'd laugh because you never know when the boss is going to get an idea, you know, or I'd come into the office and say, okay, get me these 4 or 5 people to show up, and I've got another idea. And they'd say, oh God, another idea.
Mike O'Brien was known to do that as city manager. I mean,
He may have been.
Is that a type A? Are you a type A?
I'm an A+. And